when you look at the collection of talent that the Detroit Lions have gathered in the 2023 NFL Draft, you just come away with the impression that they're just doing a lot of things right. The players, the positions that they've addressed, the time that they've drafted certain guys is certainly controversial with Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell. I'm fine with that. But the players that they've added and that address long-term and short-term goals, I think is really unique. There's a lot of teams that have done an incredible job so far in the draft through 4 rounds. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Houston Texans. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have had a great draft, among others. For me, the Detroit Lions kind of stick out. Let's go out there first and talk about Brian Branch. I'll get to Hendon Hooker and Sam Laporta in a moment, his other second-round picks. If you watch Alabama film from 2022, Brian Branch is all over the place. He makes plays in all directions, coming downhill, at angles, taking on blocks, covering people at the second level, flipping, opening his hips, covering people vertical. Look, he played a lot of nickel in college, but he's capable of being versatile. And I want to offer to Lions fans this scenario. You have Brian Branch, who's 21 years old, Kirby Joseph, 22 years old, coming off a rookie season where he just had 4 interceptions. You now have C.J. Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles, 25 years old, 6 interceptions last year. All versatile guys who make plays. They make plays at the ball against the run and the pass. When you watch Alabama film, Branch looks like the best player on the field for Alabama defensively. In my opinion, I think he's one of the top 12 or 15 defensive players in this draft. And there's some who think he was a top 30 player overall anyway. The Lions were able to go out there and get him the 14th pick of the second round after taking Sam Laporta as a tight end. Interesting to me that Branch wasn't their first pick. A lot of other teams had let him fall to that far as well. He's an incredible football player, super aggressive. As a Ravens fan who's watched a lot of film of this guy, he reminds me of Marlon Humphrey because he can make plays coming forward, tackling people, taking on blocks. He can be used as a blitzer off the edge or in the B-gap. He can cover people out in the flats, cover people vertically. When I make that Marlon Humphrey comparison, if you're someone who really pays attention to the game, you'll understand that's an extreme compliment from me. Because if you look at Marlon Humphrey film from 2022, he had an amazing season. In my opinion, the Lions have the best 3 safety group in the NFL potentially, with Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, who I think had an amazing rookie year, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Let's talk about Hendon Hooker. Look, I believe in what the Lions are doing offensively. You should too, if you're a Lions fan. Hendon Hooker is a guy who played in a spread system, and so in the shotgun almost exclusively. So clearly the Lions system and what they do is a little different, no doubt. And I don't think even last year in 2022 the Lions offense was clean in the first 4 or 5 games of the season. I know that they had some super close games that they lost, but to me, even some of the plays, the timing of things, I thought got better after the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. I feel like the stats kind of show that, and the fact that there was no turnovers from the quarterback position for I think 11 weeks in a row, but I might be wrong there. It might have been 9 weeks in a row. Getting back to Hooker, he didn't play in a similar system to the Lions in college. He did not. Tennessee's offense was just different. Let's put it that way. It was very much a spread system, but it was almost like a spread system to the extreme. I thought there was a lot of, and I can't prove this, to be honest with you, but this is just my observation. I thought there was a lot of pre-snap determinations in Tennessee's offense based on the defense's alignment. So what I mean by that is Hendon Hooker had to line up, understand, okay, I've got 2 receivers out wide to my left. And when I say out wide, I mean really wide, damn near both of them within 6 yards of the sideline. And Hooker had to look at defensive alignments. How many guys are in the box? How many guys are over there covering those twin receivers? Okay, what kind of coverage do I have on the other side? To my right, generally where Cedric Tillman was, who's a stud who just got drafted in the 3rd round. And then, okay, which weapon do I want to take advantage of? Do I want to run the play? Do I want to run the run concept in here? Do I want to throw the screen out here to the left where I've got Jalin Hyatt? Do I want to check to something vertical with Jalin Hyatt? Or do I want to take the one-on-one over there to Cedric Tillman? Why am I talking about this? In my opinion, Hendon Hooker had to make those decisions pre-snap a lot. Are they the same type of decisions that Jared Goff has had to make pre-snap with the Lions? No, they are not. But I'm offering to you that Hendon Hooker had to make a lot of decisions, even though there's some people who are very critical of Tennessee's offense in college last year, and I'm one of them. I'm going to be honest with you, it was not a whole lot of fun to watch sometimes. Having said that, Hendon Hooker is familiar with having to make pre-snap determinations based on number count, based on the coverage he sees, and then determine which weapon do I want to utilize on this play. Jalin Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, hand the ball off to a running back, keep it myself. And the last thing about Hendon Hooker, or one of the next last point, is this. If you go look at the stats, I mean, since he transferred from Virginia Tech to Tennessee, 2 seasons there, it's not just the 58 touchdowns versus 5 interceptions that is striking, if you ask me, in his 2 years at Tennessee. It's this. I felt like there was a lot of screens in that system, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of vertical passing as well. 69% completion percentage. I don't pretend to be able to quote to you some of Hendon Hooker's missed throws or some of his best throws. I haven't watched that much film of him, but what I can say is when you look at the film and you see, or when you look at the stats and you see 58 touchdowns versus 5 interceptions over a 2-year period and 69% completion percentage, you would think you're talking about a lot of short passes, a West Coast system, 3-step drops, et cetera, et cetera. You're not. There's a vertical passing element to this offense. Hendon Hooker has the arm to get that done, and I think that Lions fans should look at him in that regard, at least off the jump. All right, second point about Hendon Hooker is I think that the Lions did the right thing by getting a quarterback who should sit for a year. And when I say that, I'm recognizing the fact that he had an ACL injury, that the recovery time, may take longer than projected. Who knows? But they don't have to rush him. He doesn't have to be the starter. You have Jared Goff, who just had a great year. Ben Johnson's coming back as an offensive coordinator. In my opinion, this is a smart move drafting Hendon Hooker. Not just where they drafted him, the 5th pick of the 3rd round, by the way, but also because they don't need him for 2023 to win football games. Having said that, he'll get a year in Ben Johnson's system. We would expect, if you're a Lions fan and you see the progression, or anyone who just sees the progression of this team and how it's being built, they're going to win more games in 2023 than they did in 2022. I just think it's a fact. I think they're going to win more than 9 games. Is it going to be 11 games, 12 games, 13 games? Who knows all those things. My point is they're set up to win now with Jared Goff and Ben Johnson returning, who does a fantastic job every week. I'd like to get into more of study of what he does on offense. I think I got 8 games of Lions, 8 Lions games saved up and cut up, down distance, personnel formation, all that stuff labeled. I just haven't compiled it yet and been able to make any conclusions because I don't have that kind of time to do it full time. But I think Hendon Hooker addresses the short term as a backup in 2023 once he's completely healthy, and then also projects as a guy who could be a starter depending on how he takes to the Lions offense. Ben Johnson, if they do win a lot of football games in 2023, Ben Johnson's probably not going to be there. No doubt about it. He probably should have been gone this year, right? But chose to come back to the Lions. They got a great setup there with Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes as his GM. Sam Laporta, tight end from Iowa. Saw some criticism of this pick. It did surprise me, to be honest with you, that the Lions took him before Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. To be honest with you, I would have expected Mayer to go first. But once I saw the Laporta pick, something triggered in my mind. It's like, oh, I've seen film of him, even though I haven't watched a ton of it personally. I can't differentiate between Laporta and Mayer as to why the Lions may have taken him first. I do know that he's a solid receiver of the football. I do know he can make plays. He can make people miss. I've seen film of him making people miss in the Big Ten level, FBS level, Power 5 teams. He makes plays with contact as well. I am interested in how he will be used as a run blocker. I did not see him being a dominant run blocker, but I can't make a definitive statement about his ability to do so. I think that Ben Johnson and the Lions will use him expertly, along with Brock Wright, who I think's got a lot of potential. I do find it funny, I will point this out, maybe this is a little petty of me, that there was a lot of talk on 2 of the videos I did about a month ago about the Lions taking a tight end in this draft. And when I said taking a tight, I don't think it was Laporta that I had him projected to take. I'll have to go back and look. And I'm thinking of 3 comments in particular that were like, the Lions are not taking a tight end. They don't need one. Well, here you are. Early in the second round, 3rd pick of the second round, Lions took a tight end. They went out and got specific players, if you ask me, and improved this roster. And I think Sam Laporta is part of that equation, even though I cannot give you specific film instances because I didn't watch a ton of Iowa film, to be honest with you. All 3 second-round picks, if you ask me, I'm saying Hendon Hooker is a second-round pick. He was 5th pick of the 3rd round. So, all 3 picks address varying levels of need. And I think that's the interesting thing for this second night of the draft and from a Lions perspective. Let's start with Hooker. He's not needed immediately, but there's the potential for him to be the starter in the future. Brilliant pick. On the other side of that coin, Brian Branch is needed now. He's an impact player defensive. He's a day 1 starter. Tackles, great. Takes on blocks, great. Blitzes, make plays in the backfield, fantastic. Covers people, well. Very disciplined. Played in that cover 7 system at Alabama. Understands split field coverages. I think he can play more in a too-high look than he did at Alabama. Alabama had a couple of real experienced safeties, one of which got drafted by the Bengals tonight, I think Jordan Battle. Brian Branch is needed immediately, which is different from Hendon Hooker. Sam Laporta can play, but he's not going to start over Brock Wright, presumably, in a 1 tight end personnel grouping. But this does open up the possibility for the Lions to go 12 personnel more, because both of those guys can be used as traditional tight ends or slot receivers or even a fullback. I think it's a brilliant second night of the draft for them. Then they just capped it all off. Lions traded back in near the end of round 3, I think pick 96, and they just took a humongous D-tackle in Broderick Martin. The Lions addressed that backup D-tackle spot. I really like McNeil, Buggs. Kaminsky is one of the most underrated players across the NFL. I'm going to say that every Lions video I make. I like their entire D-line. Never thought they needed an edge defender. I think they trust in James Houston IV, and I'm just happy that they didn't draft the edge defender, and now James Houston IV, he's going to get snaps. Let's see how many sacks he can come up with. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Lions draft so far this year. Obviously, they got 1 5th-round pick and then a 7th rounder, I think. It's a late 7th rounder. They got one of the best safety nickel players in the draft in Brian Branch. They got the 2nd best running back in Jahmyr Gibbs. Definitely one of the most explosive offensive players in Jahmyr Gibbs. One of them, and possibly the most athletic and imposing inside linebacker in the draft in Campbell. A very interesting and accomplished quarterback in Hendon Hooker. So just to reiterate one point, talking about him against Alabama. 2022, he threw for 5 touchdowns against Alabama and 385 yards. And then 2021, he threw for 3 touchdowns and I think 280 against them. The guy can play. He succeeds against Alabama. I'm impressed with the collection of talent they got here in Detroit after 2 nights of the draft. You're a Lions fan watching this video this long. First of all, I appreciate it. Let me know what you think of the collection of talent they've got. I think the Lions are ready to roll, and this draft has expertly addressed certain positions and given them versatility as well. So I'm going to talk about Laporta and Branch. That's going to be my final point. Branch, Gardner Johnson, and Kirby Joseph, they can be interchangeable. They're going to be far more versatile defensively than they were with Deshaun Elliott. And I like Deshaun Elliott. I'm a Ravens fan. I'm a Ravens content creator generally. So I know a lot about Deshaun Elliott. He's not that versatile compared to those 3 guys. He can't play at the 2nd level as much as a nickel defender. Gardner Johnson can do that. Gardner Johnson can play free safety. Kirby Joseph's a hell of a free safety. They have a very unique collection of safeties there that are versatile. On the other side of the ball, Laporta and Brock Wright. Those guys are versatile. The only drawback for me is I'm wondering how good of a blocker Sam Laporta will be at the point of attack. I don't pretend to know that he's a terrible blocker. I just didn't see him being a dominant blocker in the limited amount of film that I watched, which was really only 2 games. I would have liked to have watched more Iowa film, particularly with how many guys have been drafted already from Iowa. Let me know what you think of the video, what you think of my thoughts about the Lions draft. super impressed with what they've done. Outside of maybe the Houston Texans, I think the Lions are the team that's just done most things right through 2 nights of the NFL draft. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other NFL fans, Lions fans in particular, would enjoy this content or enjoy this video commentary, please consider sharing a link to it on social media to help the video get more reach.